how could you possibly determine if something is soluble or if it's insoluble? Again, the big question we have here, is this compound soluble or if it's not? So how can you tell by the elements involved in this compound, how can you determine if it's soluble in water or if it's insoluble? Now we have three very strong rules in chemistry. They tell you if something is soluble. First of all, if the compound contains or has a group 1 element, anytime you have a group 1 element involved in a compound, then this must be soluble compound. Like if you have potassium, sodium, lithium, they're all soluble compounds. The second rule, if you have ammonium, if you have NH4 in your compound, then again, it's gonna be soluble. The third case, if you got nitrate. So nitrate 100% makes your compound soluble. So notice, if the compound is soluble, I am putting the compound or putting the group there, I'm putting it inside that blue circle. So anything that goes inside that blue circle, it's soluble in water. Now, when it comes to something like sulfates, if it's sulfates are highly soluble, but you do have exceptions. So look, I'm gonna put the sulfate into the blue part, but outside in this black circle, I'm gonna put the exceptions. The main two exceptions I have here is barium. So we have barium sulfate that's insoluble. Or if you have like lead sulfate, again, it's quite insoluble. Even silver sulfate is quite insoluble, right? So again, you just need to remember that sulfate is soluble, but you do have those three exceptions that make it insoluble. I also have halides. Halides, what does halide mean? It means like chloride, bromide, iodide, members of group 7. Those are soluble, those are quite soluble, but again, I do have exceptions. And the exceptions are what? Exceptions are silver and lead. So silver chloride or lead bromide, these are insoluble in water. Now comes the things that are likely to be insoluble. Hydroxides, oxides, those are usually insoluble. But you may have them soluble if they were attached to group 1. Or if they're attached to ammonium. So the rule in the middle is stronger than the rule outside, all right? So although all oxides are insoluble, but group 1 oxide like sodium oxide is soluble. Carbonates, again, is insoluble, but again, the rule you have in the middle is stronger. So even carbonates are insoluble, but sodium carbonate is actually soluble. Okay, so I'm going to show you the compound. Let's just summarize the rules and then we try to apply that thing here. Again, remember what I was saying? The three very strong rules that tell you 100% if something dissolves or something doesn't dissolve. The first rule is going to be group 1, nitrates, and ammonium. Okay, those have no exceptions. Okay. If I have carbonates, I'm just going to put them here, oxides and hydroxides, these are always insoluble. But I do have exceptions. What are the exceptions I have here? The exceptions, if you got group 1 or if you have ammonium with it. Okay. Sulfates, halides are soluble, but I do have exceptions. With halides, I have exceptions with silver and lead. And with sulfates, I have exceptions with barium, mainly silver and lead. Okay? Is this clear? So let's try this. I'm going to show you the compound. If you think it's soluble, write in the chat box the letter S. If you think it's insoluble, just write the letter I, okay? So again, I have potassium iodide. Is this soluble or is it insoluble? What do you think? It must be what? It's like a group 1, right? You remember what we just said about group 1 compounds? We said that group 1 compounds are actually soluble. What if it was like barium sulfate? Do you remember what was special about barium sulfate? At that time, we said that sulfates are soluble, but with barium, it becomes insoluble, right? Silver nitrates. Silver nitrates is actually what? Where you remember what was special about nitrates? Nitrates were actually soluble all the time. Oxides are what? Oxides like magnesium oxides. Oxides of magnesium oxides are usually what? They're usually insoluble, right? Unless they are with group 1. But magnesium is not a member of group 1. Silver iodide. When I see silver, I always doubt the solubility. And iodide is going to be insoluble. Again, I'm using the rules I have here. All right? I said silver with these is insoluble, right? Then I have lithium oxide. I have it here. Lithium is like a member of group 1, right? Do you remember what we said about group 1 elements? We said that group 1 are always soluble. When it comes to zinc chloride, zinc is like a member of, it's not like silver or lead. It's a halide with any element other than silver and lead. When it's a halide without any of those elements, then it's soluble, right? Lastly, it's lead iodide. That's like one of the exceptions, isn't it? So that's lead, halide. That makes it insoluble, okay?